Sierra here at Halcyon Yarn, and today I am going to show you a very simple way of sewing a seam. Now, as you can see, I have a lovely rectangle here. I would like to make this rectangle into a cowl. Now, cowls are circular, so what I plan to do is take this edge and sew them together so that then I have a nice little circle to pull over my head. So, something to keep in mind when you're about to sew a seam is it will matter eventually. With this particular project, it doesn't matter, but eventually it'll matter which side is the right side of your fabric. For example, if you're a beginner knitter, you might have one side, or even if you're me and a very seasoned knitter, you might have one side of the fabric that's very neat and tidy, and you could have, the back side could have a bunch of little knots where you were attaching yarn. It could look a little lumpy, a little messy, which is just as lovely because you made it yourself, and nobody should ever be ashamed of mistakes. But say you want to hide that, you choose which side you want to be the right side, the outside of your fabric. And that is the side that you want to have on the inside while you're sewing this kind of seam. So I'm going to pretend that this side's the nicer one. Maybe it is. So this is the right side. I'm going to fold this in half. Right sides facing is what that instruction means in your knitting patterns. And now I want to attach that seam. So I have left, after binding off, you see I left a nice long tail. They usually will say you want it to be 2 to 3, even up to 5 times the length of the seam you want to sew. I just left a really long tail. I think I did like arm's length. So I thought ahead to do that, and some patterns will tell you to think ahead to do that. But if you haven't, all you have to do is just cut a long enough length of yarn, and for that first stitch, you take one end of the yarn, whether it's attached to your knitting already or not, you thread it through your darning, tapestry, yarn needle. I'm sure there's a difference in what they're called depending on what needle it is. I use those words interchangeably, so I apologize. So this one's already attached, but pretend it's not. You would take the yarn and go through your first stitch. You see all these little V's here? Those are all stitches from the bind off edge. Those ones are easy to find because that's how it looks when we've done that particular kind of bind off. Now the kind of cast on I used, which is my super easy beginner cast on, doesn't have those little V's. See how that looks different? You never want to just pick up one of these loose loops, because what will happen is, you see how loose and open those are? If you just sew this edge to that, you're going to have big open spaces in your seam. You don't want that. So I've got the yarn going through my first little V stitch, and again, this is easy for me to figure out because I've been knitting for many years, but when you're just starting out, don't worry about going stitch for stitch. As long as you've got these sides, not one side kind of puckered in, pretend, I don't know, say I decided to go, say I decided to go over here. You want to keep it kind of even with what you're seeing, but you don't want to go way off course like that, because then you're going to have kind of a puckered, awkward seam. So I've got into my first one. If my yarn wasn't attached, there would be a nice like 6-inch tail here left over, so I wouldn't pull the yarn all the way through. But since it was already attached, I've got it all the way through, and then I go through these two loops. If you get it down here, that's cool. You're just starting out. It's still gonna look great. It's still gonna hold together. If you get it in here, maybe even better actually, because that's not a loop. Never mind. So these 2 loops. And you wanna pull it snug, but not super tight. And I'll do a couple more stitches before I show you why you don't want it to be super tight. So I'm picking out my next V, going into that next space. It just makes sense. I'm holding these so that the edges line up. It's all good. So even if you're not getting it in the actual stitches, as long as they line up the fabric, you're doing well. So you get it through those guys, pull it snug, couple more, and I will show you Now, I'm going to do something wrong on purpose. So that's just kind of tight. It's not, I haven't put any tension when I'm doing it. I've just pulled it through so that there's no excess. So just like that, if you pull it really tight, you'll notice it pulls, it tugs that outer corner in, and it puckers the fabric. You don't want that to happen. So you kind of loosen that up a little bit, maintaining even tension. You just go right down your seam like so. Now this isn't always going to be the most perfect method of seaming, but I think it's gotten me through many, many projects. And for something like this cowl, which is meant to look a little bit handmade, a little rustic, a little wobbly, it's okay to have a little bit of a messy seam, but you see how on the outside of the fabric, the right sides, you've got a really nice tidy little edge there. But on this side, it's kind of lumpy. That's why you want the seam to be on the inside of your project. So once you've sewn all the way to the end, you get to that very last stitch. I've saved it to show you. I've got my last little V. It's a messy one, but it's a V. We get that one, I go into the last corner on the other side. I've pulled that through. Now, I am going to go into that stitch one more time, just for a little bit more strength and sturdiness. Sometimes I'll even take my needle and go in, and so you've pulled that through, you've got a little loop, stick that needle through the loop and pull that snug. And that's not coming undone. So at this point, you'll just weave in your ends, cut the excess, and you've got yourself a beautiful cowl.